Hi there, Pisces. Welcome to your August 2025 love reading. It's Raina from Tarot Alchemy with Raina Moon. And this is a channel where I'm currently doing a lot of love readings, maybe a weekly here and there. We'll see. Different series, I guess. And my main channel is Raina Moon Astrology, where I do mainly astrology, but I do a little bit of tarot there too. So if you're interested, you can check that out and you don't know about me. This is for the month of August. And one of the things that I like to do is I like to tie the astrological influences to my tarot readings because I think that they work really well together. Even though they're different disciplines or whatever you want to call it, I think that they are complementary for sure in certain ways. So I do enjoy it. And and by the way, this is for singles and for people who are coupled. Typically when I'm doing readings for, and I'm including, last month I was doing relationship readings. Sometimes I do both singles and relationships in separate series of videos. But when I'm discussing relationships, it's not meant for people who have great relationships. It's meant for people who maybe at one time they were great, but now they're kind of shaky and you're wondering, like, what should I do next? The heart of the matter is the Eight of Wands. This is a card of movement, and it can be like, 0 to 80, where you felt like in a holding pattern, and all of a sudden everything seems to be flying at once. It can be back and forth communications. So you meet someone and it's like a hot and heavy thing. This is fire energy being wands. So it could even be a person of that persuasion, an Aries, Leo, or Sagittarius. Usually Sagittarius, mutable signs, you might find that irresistible friction of the square that attracts you to that type of person. But whoever it is, it can be very sudden and take off like a rocket. But sometimes fire burns out very quickly. That's why we use the term affair or fling to describe a situation that might be like a lot of physical attraction. And I think the fire element too can speak to that passion. But whether it has that quality of endurance is another story. If you're single, this could be, having a drought where you didn't have any dates, or you're kind of just flying solo, and then all of a sudden it's like you're getting phone calls or you're meeting people a lot easier than you used to. In the past position is the Ace of Swords. I've been getting this card in multiple readings, and the Ace of Swords is the sword of truth. And you can see the clouds that the sword is piercing through. The clouds can represent illusion, deception, delusion, and the person is gaining mental clarity, and that's allowing them to move forward. So the point being that if you're someone who, let's say you have been in a relationship, and sometimes I think of the Ace of Swords as getting out of denial over what's going on. And these two cards can be like legal cards. Obviously justice can be legal, but the King of Swords can be like a judge. But it's in the challenge position. So it may be either that something is delayed or that you haven't fully committed to this course of action for some reason. The higher message is the Five of Pentacles. This can be a fear-based card, a fear of losing income. So for somebody who is coupled, a fear of not having the same resources as you did when you were a couple. But if you're single, this can be not having the opportunities to date. Like if you, for instance, um, for Pisces individuals, your fifth house, which is the dating house, so somebody who is single, that's the house that you're going to focus on more than the seventh house, which is also getting, by the way, that is getting eclipsed with Virgo. But your fifth house, if you're single and dating, is going to be more central to your concerns. And that house you have, that's Cancer for you, fellow water sign that trines you. And it's also where Jupiter is. So Jupiter can expand the area that it's in, and it can create a sense of, luck, maybe opportunity that the person has to make something happen. And it can be great in that regard. And maybe you do have, when I say expand, you might have multiple dating opportunities, whereas before you kind of had this lull. And that's why I say 0 to 80, with the 8 of Wands, because Jupiter just went into Cancer in June, and you've had like Mars in that fifth house in Cancer for a long time when it was retrograding between, Leo and Cancer. So you might have even had like some flings, but maybe now you're looking for the real deal. So for people who are coupled, you might be ready to kind of like stick a fork in it and it's done, but there's other factors that are contributing. If I look at this card separately, the King of Swords, this can be, first of all, we're in a Mercury retrograde, and even in the month of August, even though Mercury goes direct on the 11th, it's going to be in its shadow period until the 26th. So that's practically the whole month. So there could still be like, if we're looking at legal matters, that things are not quite the way that they should be. And therefore you have to wait for something along those lines. Again, talking about the legal area, the seventh house can be legal affairs, and your opposite sign, Virgo, is going to have 2 new moons there, and one of them is a solar eclipse on September 21st. So that area is getting triggered big time. So that could be heating up too, if you have anything like that happening. But it can also be with yourself, because the swords relate to the air signs. I always think of the King of Swords as the the sign of Aquarius, but the other air signs are Gemini and Libra. And the King of Swords can be an individual who is very out of touch with their feelings. And so but also with you, it may be that you cannot get to that place where you are detached enough to kind of proceed. And I'm speaking right now specifically of people who are in committed partnerships, where you can just detach from somebody who may not be good for you. And this is kind of the story of Pisces life, is this idea of like making a beeline towards the people that may not be the best for you, because you see something in them maybe that you want to heal. You're like the natural healer, and you want to heal someone. Well, that's a beautiful thing. Maybe be a social worker or something for a living and make some money while you're doing it. But to do it in relationship and to seek out people that are broken and need that kind of attention can drag you down, and it's not really an equal relationship to begin with. So you could be like, if this is somebody also that you were with, even though we have this movement, you might be stuck on that person, and then that kind of blocks your ability to really move forward and to embrace these ample opportunities. What's coming in is a 10 of swords, and typically we say of this card it's betrayal. But in this case, because of the context, I would say that an end of a cycle for you, a cycle that might have been more challenging is at the end. I personally think this has to do with Saturn being in your sign. Even though Saturn is retrograding in your sign and so is Neptune, and those two planets can be challenging in their own ways, I feel like this is just kind of the last hurrah or the last gasp. And then in 2026, you're going to be fully rid of these two planets transiting. I mean, for Saturn, it'll be 30 years. For Neptune, you'll never have to deal with it in your lifetime again. Now, of course, you're ruled by Neptune, so it's not really like, oh God, this is so terrible to have Neptune in my sign. But for anyone, Neptune in their sign can make, because that's the first house, it can make them feel rather confused about what direction they're going in. And they can feel kind of aimless and, without an identity. So that could be, and all the things that go along with it, that if you were betrayed by somebody in a past relationship, maybe that cycle has ended and you finally let go of the hurt and whatever negative feelings were kind of affecting you. And then the outcome is the Justice card. If you are in a committed relationship, and some relationships might be salvageable, but you have to find a way of balance. If one of you works all the time and you never get to see each other, of course, that's going to make the relationship suffer. If, one person has a tendency to drink too much or things like that, they have to get help for themselves or whatever. You can't have a relationship with somebody who is, out of control, or anything with you that needs to be balanced. So it's really about, for people who are coupled, either seeking, some kind of legal counsel so that you can move on with your life, or finding balance in your relationship if you feel that it still is salvageable. That's what I have for you, Pisces. I hope that this resonated. If you would like a private reading, the link is below. Take care. Bye.